The content in this podcast is both graphic and the property of the original authors. Listener discretion is advised. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Devin Zahn, and welcome to episode 6 of my podcast, Tales for the Dark, Creepy Internet Stories. We got another great show for you guys today. We got 3 more stories, 1 true crime, 1 creepypasta, and 1 cryptid. But first, we got a couple house cleaning items to take care of, as always. Starting, of course, with our dad jokes. Also from countryliving.com, these 5 are pretty good ones. So, starting with the first, we have, if a child refuses to nap, are they guilty of resisting arrest? That's a good one. So, what country's capital is growing the fastest? Ireland. Every day, it's Dublin. That's a pretty good one too. Did you know corduroy pillows are in style? They're making headlines. I kind of get that. That one's kind of a stupid joke, to be honest. I had a dream once. I was floating in an ocean of orange soda. It was more of a fantasy. I like that. That's a good one. Alright, and did you hear about the kidnapping at school? It's okay. He woke up. That's pretty good too. And last one, a cheeseburger walks into a bar. The bartender says, "Sorry, we don't serve food here." So yeah, those are pretty good dad jokes as always. I'm running out of dad jokes, so pretty soon I might have to start doing some offensive jokes. Yeah, that's more of a joke too, so I probably won't be doing that. I will lose more viewers and listeners than nothing else. But with that being the end of our dad jokes for this episode, I am going to get right into the taste test for this episode. And we have a couple unique things that I've never tried before, so this is going to be very interesting. I'm going to pause and come back once I've opened up the loud bags and everything, so I will see you guys in a second. Alright, so I tore the seal off these things, and I can already tell you I'm gonna hate this. So our first taste test for this episode is Calbee shrimp chips baked. They are wheat puffs snacks, kind of like puffy Cheetos, made with shrimp and flavored to be yuzu and black pepper. I have no idea what yuzu is. So, and they smell atrocious. Okay, so, yeah, this is shrimp chips. You guys better enjoy this, because I definitely do not some of these, and these smell just like the seaweed chips I had a few episodes ago, and I'm not looking forward to this at all. Okay. Oh god. Oh, okay. It's the aftertaste that gets you. Otherwise, it's a pretty decent snack. But yeah, the aftertaste is seaweed and fish. That's not shrimp. I don't know what you guys put in that, but that does not taste like shrimp at all. I only ate half a puff, but I'm gonna try another half, okay? Yeah. About like halfway through. It's not even an aftertaste. Halfway through, you get a huge hit of like fishy seaweed kind of. What is with. I'm sorry, that's stereotype, but every food I've tried from this aisle has some sort of fish aspect to it. This is supposed to be shrimp. I like shrimp. But that tastes like rotting fish. It smells like rotting fish. I would not recommend that, to be honest. That is probably going to get a 4 out of 10 for me. Um, I wasn't expecting the best with that, but to be honest, I was expecting more. That was not good. 4 out of 10. Get it if you are into this more ethnic food stuff. I got it because it was unique, and I can already feel my stomach turning. It's not good. And it makes me extra worried for our next and final taste test for this episode, and that's actually going to be another drink. And this one is called, it's from J Basket. It's an aloe vera drink made with real aloe vera gel, and it's original flavor, and it almost has a jelly-like consistency. Yeah, very much so. Just looking at it, it's a clear bottle with like a wrapper and a plastic cap. You know, your typical bottle. It looks like one of those naked fruit juices, like your fruit smoothies you get, like that type of, bottle. 60 calories, and it looks like it's basically good for you. It's really good for you. The one thing that does worry me is aloe vera gel is literally the second ingredient. So I'm going to be drinking straight up plant here. So, and this isn't the fun kind that gives you freaking vision. So we'll see. Oh god. Okay, so this is aloe vera drink. That cap looks like something you would see in a freaking doctor's office. That worries me. I don't like that. Okay. Oh, it smells sweet. Kind of like cat piss. Nope, definitely like cat piss. Okay, that smells straight up like cat piss. Am I gonna be drinking cat pee here? Oh my god, am I? Okay, here we go. Here we go. Oh god, why do I... You guys better like this stuff, because I really am taking one for the team with this. I don't even wanna... Oh my god, there's chunks in there. Not bad, though. Aside from the chunks, is this expired? Oh my god! It doesn't even have a date! There's literally something on the back that says best before, and it says dd.mm.yyyy. As in, why didn't you put a date on here? Okay, oh, there's something. Okay, I maybe overreacted. Best Buy. Okay, so it's good. I gotta shake it. But that shouldn't make any sense. And wouldn't all that stuff like go to the bottom? Alright, I'm gonna give it one more shot. You heard me shake it. It actually wasn't bad. Oh, it's foaming. Now I'm worrying if there's soap in here. Okay. I'm going in for round 2, guys. You know I gotta give it more than one shot. I don't like this, so... It tastes good, but the chunks just are disconcerting. More chunks. No, it's not bad. That's actually it's a very sweet taste. It does give off a cat piss kind of smell. But I mean, and the flavor does carry over a little bit. It doesn't taste completely like cat piss. It's more like sweetened cat piss. So I can't believe I'm going to give it a better score than what I'm kind of describing here. I am probably going to give this a 6 or a 7. Probably a 6.5. A 6.5 out of 10. Aloe vera drink from J Basket. Pretty good. Not too bad. The only thing I have a critique on is that you have literal chunks of the plant in there, and I don't like that. It's like a grape's cousin that didn't get invited to the family reunion. So I'm gonna have to give that a 6.5. It's good, but it's like, stay away a little bit, So with that, we are going to be getting into our stories for this episode, starting, of course, with our creepypasta. And this one's going to be a little bit unique because it's set up in a way where part of it is story and part of it is text from a chat room. So, this is the story of Funnymouth. Funnymouth has joined hashtag Reefer Sales. Funnymouth to chat. Hello everyone tonight. I like to lick the blood out of in the person. I see your handsome face. Don't be sad about it. Come on. Smiley face emoji. Funnymouth has left hashtag Reefer Sales. Ghost George to chat. Holy fuck. What the fuck? Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Did that just happen? Ghost George to chat. Yes, Skull. Yeah, it did. Yeah, the first thing I should probably note is that I'm Lemon Lime Skull. In other words, that's my screen name up there. That was the first time I saw or heard from Funnymouth, and for all intents and purposes, it should have been the last. Anyone who's spent enough time chatting away knows that weirdos come and go. Folks pop up to ask insane questions or just to troll a populated channel. What first struck me as odd about the Funnymouth guy, however, was the fact that he came and went with no particular goal. He didn't try to piss anyone off, and he didn't ask if anyone on the channel knew how to fix his computer or remove a virus. He just stuck his head in, rattled off some random text, and happily fucked off. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. So really though, what the hell? Ghost George to chat. Not a clue. Lemon Lime Skull. He's in another channel if you want to find out. Hashtag blood. Ghost George to chat. I do not, sir. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. XD. Bitch. I don't know what results I expected from following this guy to another channel. I'm not the type that goes out of his way to annoy or argue with people. I'll usually avoid it at all costs, though once someone starts something with me, I don't mind getting into it at that point. I guess what I'm saying is, I have no idea why I pursued this. Lemon Lime Skull has entered hashtag blood. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Hey! He was sitting there in the channel all by himself. Funnymouth to chat. Staring face. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Smiley face. So? Funnymouth to chat. Staring face again. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. So? You're staring at me? That's rude. Funnymouth to chat. Sorry, I just do it. It's okay. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. I see. Funnymouth to chat. Staring face. I actually chuckled out loud at this point. He was weird and inoffensive. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. You can come back to hashtag Reefer Sales if you want. We're not gonna boot you out if that's what you're worried about. Funnymouth to chat. Staring face. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Or not? I mean, whatever, man. You just seemed interesting and I'm bored tonight. Funnymouth to chat. I am broad tonight too. I always don't. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. You always don't what? Funnymouth to chat. I always don't. That's it. I always don't because they don't, and then I get silly. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Okay, well, see you around. Funnymouth to chat. Staring face. And with that, I left. The act got old fast, and I felt either this was someone trying too hard or a legitimate moron who was unaware of how to properly use a chat program. Sitting idly by yourself and popping into other channels for a split second seemed like a desperate bid for attention. I might have done that and laughed my ass off in or around the 90s, but yeah, stupid. Ghost George to chat. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Nothing. I seriously don't know what he was saying. Ghost George to chat. Ha! Welcome to the internet. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. What's sad is that besides you and me, that guy is the only active user here all night. Lemon Lime Skull kicks Killj and shouts, "Wake up!" Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Blah. Silence dominated the channel for about a half hour as I minimized the window and went about my business. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Anyone on? Nothing. 8 users in the channel, not a single one active. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Boring? Why are you people so boring? Funnymouth to chat. Staring face. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Wake up. It took me a few seconds to see it. Funnymouth again. Staring again. I physically slumped my shoulders with a "not this shit again" sigh. Then I noticed he wasn't in the channel. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Question mark. Ellipses. Anyone else see him? Of course not. Because you're all idle. Obviously, it was a glitch with either my client or the server. The message was kicked up from earlier in the night, at random. These things happen. Still, it creeped the hell out of me. After a few minutes of sitting there with a really cold, creepy feeling in my stomach, that I shouldn't have done something feeling, I decided to stop trying to brave it out and just closed out the entire chat program. Sure, I could have just hung out like everything was fine, but why bother try to prove that I wasn't spooked? Hell, nobody was even around to see me slink away. After a few hours screwing around on the web, I went to bed around 2:40 a.m. One thing I've always prided myself on is that I do not usually have nightmares, at least not regularly. Usually, if there are monsters or ghosts or nuclear wars in my dreams, I get to control it and have a great time. I'm shooting zombies in the face, outright telling ghosts that they're not real, and I laugh at them. And if there's some disaster, I always know how to get to the safe spot, while every other effer dies. I've had maybe 4 actual nightmares in the past 10 years, and yes, I'm completely serious. The first nightmare of my adult life was in 2005. I'd just broken off a relationship with someone who had been with someone else for over a year behind my back. That night, when I finally did get to sleep, I dreamt that she was strapped down to a medical table while some sort of unseen, inexplicable creature sucked her brain out through an organic machine. The brain screamed ceaselessly. The second nightmare had me visiting a medical facility where they were experimenting with new methods of saving lives. There was a fantastic tour of this high-tech facility, lots of wonders of modern science, people in lab coats, etc. Then I was led to a room where 3 car crash victims had been, quote, saved by their techniques. This included a slowly rocking young girl whose face had been completely distended and hung around her chest, and a woman who was nothing but a cluster of twitching, severed limbs, all held together by a drawn-out, kite-like span of flesh. The third came soon after the second. I was being accosted by 2 people, one who wanted to insult me to no end, and the other who kept trying to pinch and tweak me in absurdly ineffective ways. Thinking I could control this dream like the others, I set the 2 men against each other, thinking it would be sort of a poetic justice, as you will. Instead, the pincher became increasingly violent until he was pulling at the other's cheeks, grabbing his tongue with a fist and furiously pulling at it until it came out. Then he pulled the fellow's eyelids until they distended in some sort of grotesque prolapse. I suppose what I'm getting at is that even when I did have nightmares, I was never the actual target of any sort of horror. It's always been kind of empathetic horror related to someone else getting brutalized. This night, however, was different. As soon as I fell asleep, I started dreaming. Basically, it was a recurring dream I have where I'm in the woods, just checking out animals and birds and generally acting chill. I lie in the grass and look up at the sky. It's always a dream I welcome, because even if I had a shit day, I'll wake up happy and ready to start over. This time, the script changed. I laid in the grass, but while I was staring at the sky, I felt something odd. It was cold, and I had this squirming feeling on my neck. In the dream, I reached to my neck and pulled away a long, writhing earthworm. Earthworms disgust me. If I see one in the yard, I'll specifically get a shovel and heap dirt over it simply so I don't accidentally see it again. Disgusted, but more or less content, I flung the worm aside and continued my dream. Then, the feeling came again. Clammy, wet, wiggling against the side of my neck. I pulled another worm away.
Again, it happened. The third time, the feeling of confusion and dread became so overwhelming that I immediately snapped myself out of the dream. That's usually what happens when shit gets real in my dreams. Game over. I figured it out though. At least, I thought I had. In the waking world, I felt my neck and discovered a slick, slimy film on my skin. Logic dictated that I must have been drooling in my sleep. Nothing to be proud of, but not exactly terrifying either. My dreaming mind must have translated the icky feeling into an appropriate creature in the forest stream. Perhaps more unsettling, though, was the fact that the bed around me seemed to have indentations. 4, to be exact. It was almost as if someone on hands and knees had been hovering over me as I slept. There was any number of reasons that could have happened, but from then on, after that night, I slept very lightly. Any little thing, like the sound of a ceiling fan, would wake me up straight away. I had no real interest in going back to the woods that night. When morning came around, I got ready to take off, to get out of my house and shake the cobwebs out. I only planned to check on my emails real quick to make sure I didn't have any pending transactions or questions I had to answer. Surprise! From Funnymouth@blood.com on Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 2:42 a.m. to Charles Watts. I had a good time to talk to you. It can be fun again. You'll see what. I don't like stop it. As you probably recall, I hadn't given this asshat my email address. However, logical answer, someone else on the channel must have. He obviously came back to Reefer Sales, asked someone who I was, and that douchebag completely betrayed me, knowing I don't give out my personal contact info to anyone. Although, the email was dated for 2:40. That was pretty much the moment I went to bed, when everyone on the channel was still idle. Even though I well and truly knew I was taking some sort of bait, I responded. From Charles Watts, Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 9:29 a.m. to Funnymouth@blood.com. Yeah bro, not exactly sure I want you emailing me. It was clear and to the point. There was no mistaking the message I was sending. And though it was snippy, I wasn't goading him into replying by starting a flame war. But of course, from Funnymouth@blood.com, Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 9:30 a.m. to Charles Watts. Come on, don't be so sad about it. I know you can like it. We will have fun a lot of the time. It's okay even. And with that, I blocked his address. Really, I should have done that in the first place, but I still had some sort of sick interest in exactly where this was going. Maybe if I put my foot down, he would admit he was just screwing around and call me a humorless wet blanket or something. When I saw it was just the same old bullshit, they gave me the green light to go ahead and shut the guy out. For what it's worth, you can relax at this point. The blocking stuck. There was no follow-up message circumventing the ban. After a few minutes, I assured myself that it was all over and I went about my day. It It wasn't until I got home at dusk that the cold, squirming feeling in my stomach started all over again. I had no idea why. Well, that's not entirely true. I had some idea. I checked my email. Nothing from Funnymouth. However, there was an email from George. George D., Saturday, November 17th, 2012, at 2:03 p.m. to Charles Watts. Hey, reefersales.com is fucked up. I can't get shit to load. When you're online, please take a look ASAP. Peace and carrots, George. I let out a string of curses. Downtime meant lost sales, and I'd been out all day with no way for George to contact me. If I'd been a little less strict with my personal info, he could have just called me. I loaded the site and waited for some sort of error screen. Instead, it began to reroute to another page, blood.com. From Charles Watts on Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 6:15 p.m. to George. Yeah, I see it. It's redirecting to a website with a giant pixelated face with a messed up tongue. I think this has to be Funnymouth. That piece of shit. Did you give him my email with the domain in it? CW. From George G. on Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 6:23 p.m. to Charles Watts. It's a 404 page, not a redirect. I want what you're smoking. All I get on blood.com is a coming soon notice. I didn't give anyone shit. George. From Charles Watts, Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 6:25 p.m. to George G. Har har har, funny. Then George emailed me a screenshot of the site giving a 404 error, along with a coming soon notice for blood.com. He could have easily faked them, but why? I mean, if this was some sort of joke, it was pretty abstract and I didn't get it. When I looked at my website files, everything was normal. Nothing was out of place and nobody had even logged in to change anything. I checked the domain name's name servers, the thing that routes a domain where it's supposed to go, and yeah, nothing was out of sorts. Still, there was this bloated, tongue-wagging face staring back at me with its empty eye sockets. Then, I don't know how I missed it in the first place. Looking closely, the picture of that face wasn't really pixelated. It was made of tiny letters, HTML code, coloring each letter specific to the image. Over and over again, the word that made up the image was right in front of me. Funnymouth, 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 in a great cluster of nonsense. I felt like spitting at the screen. I unblocked his email and set about writing an incredibly profane and threatening letter. I didn't really care if I got the site back at this point. I just wanted to get everything off my chest so I could feel like I was in control of the situation again. But before I could finish the letter, I just got this weird, creepy feeling again that, no, it couldn't be feeling when you know you're being absurd, but at the same time, you know you're right. I stopped hacking out my death threats and checked the inbox. Sure enough. From Funnymouth at blood.com on Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 7 o'clock to Charles Watts. I see your handsome face. Again, right at 7 o'clock. Hello, buddy. At 7:01. Come on. Again at 7:01. Hello. At 7:01 again. Hello, hello, hello. At 7:01. I don't want to not. At 7:01. I don't think about it. Please, though. Again at 7:01. I see your handsome face. Not only was that feeling correct, the feeling that he had already emailed me the minute I unblocked him, but it seemed he had steadily been emailing me nonstop since I blocked him. 10 more letters arrived just within the time span it took me to reply. From Charles Watts, Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 7 p.m. to Funnymouth at blood.com. Fucking stop! I was getting a stress headache. My heart was pounding, not from fear, but rage. This was probably the most absurdly infuriating person on the internet, and that's saying a lot. Thankfully, the string of letters did indeed stop. I tried to calm myself down, breathing deeply, but it didn't seem to take. I was still incredibly pissed. Slowly, methodically, I sent him another note. From Charles Watts, Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 7:21 p.m. to Funnymouth at blood.com. Hi. I don't understand what you are saying, and I do not understand what you want. I think there may be a language barrier. Is your first language English? I think you have done something to my website, and I would like you to undo it. If you are mad at me, I did not intend this to happen. You may have misunderstood what I said or what I meant. Please change my website back and let's just go our separate ways. Thank you, CW. I waited. I thought about how I'd conquered my anger and that this measured response was really the best way to go about it. This fellow would understand what I meant. He realized the mistake he'd made. I calmed down. Everything was going to be okay. Then, from Funnymouth.com at blood.com on Saturday, November 17th, 2012 at 7:23 p.m. to Charles Watts. Staring face. I hit the roof. I hit the goddamned roof and I went clear through it. I smacked the monitor with my palm, knocking it clear off the desk. That pissed me off even more as I drove my fist into the keyboard repeatedly until the keys flew free. I screamed out in a mixture of frustration with myself and rage over the situation and stormed out of the room, knocking down anything and everything I could get my hands on. For as long as I could manage the energy, I'd laid waste to my own shit. I would have started a fire and burned the fucking place if I had a lighter on hand. That night, I stared at the ceiling for what felt like an eternity before sleep came. Waiting for sleep, I knew I was going to have a nightmare. I just knew it. That was how my luck was going. Imagine how surprised I was, even in sleep, when instead of some horrific setting, I was someplace safe. The woods. I laid in the grass again. I felt the relaxation. I knew even my subconscious knew that everything would be okay, no matter what setbacks life threw at me. The world would go on. Nothing was permanent. Everything was in transition. Nobody could really get to me. I felt the squirming against my neck. Nope, no dice. Nothing could spoil this right now. I ignored the worm, it would go away. I felt the squirming move to my mouth. Now I couldn't will myself awake. Every other time I'd been able to decide to wake up, but it seemed like that opportunity has now passed. Then it wasn't a worm. It was a finger. Then another. Then more, until 4 slimy, squirming digits were locked around my teeth, clutching my lower jaw. It didn't hurt when it happened. It was just sort of like a pop, more pressure than pain. It was quick, and before I even knew what was going on, it was over. I then managed to force myself awake. I sat up and got to my feet in complete darkness. Feeling my way around the walls, I made my way into the bathroom. There, I finally flicked a light switch. I stood before the mirror, rubbing my eyes as a harsh light blinded me. I stared into the mirror for minutes on end with no reaction, no feelings, no thoughts. Then I smiled. I smiled as best I could, now that my jaw was completely broken, hanging loose around my neck. My tongue lolled out listlessly, like a paralyzed, gooey slug. My teeth weren't rooted in anything but threads of flesh, and I could pull them out by hand with about the same discomfort as a needle prick. I laughed, the halting sound coming out like the gurgle of a backed-up sewer drain. What a handsome face! What a funny mouth! A funny mouth! A funny mouth! Funny mouth! Funny mouth! Lemon Lime Skull has joined Reefer Sales. Lemon Lime Skull to chat. I see your handsome face. Don't be so sad about it. Smiling face emoji. Ghost George to chat. Hey, where the fuck were you? Hello? Charles? Lemon Lime Skull to chat. Staring face. Lemon Lime Skull has left Reefer Sales. Wow. Okay, so that was our first story of this episode. That was Funnymouth, and that's credited to Slimebeast. I believe he actually wrote Room Zero, the story from our last episode as well. So very, very well done, dude. This guy has some real talent on him. He really does. Obviously, you know I'm going to give the story a good score. It did have a lot of profanities in it, maybe unnecessary, and it was actually very difficult to read, going back and forth from narrative to chat room, text and stuff like that. So, but either way, very well done. I did have to ad-lib a little bit of the chat room stuff, just kind of not confuse you guys, say this is who's talking, this is who's talking now, but very well written. It sounds a lot better when you read it yourself, so I might actually post the link to this creepypasta in the description, so look out for that. And what do I think of this creepypasta as a whole? It was fantastic, to be honest. It was terrifying, it was gory. I mean, it had the right amount of gore. I don't normally like cliche gore and stuff like that, but that had great buildup and a lot of callbacks, a lot of foretelling. So it was a really well written story, from my opinion. I'm not an English major by any means, but I do have some experience in the field. So, grammar wise, as always with these stories, you're going to have some grammatical errors or spelling mistakes and stuff like that, but it was very minimal this time around, and that's actually saying something because I am kind of a grammar police, type of person. So this was actually really well written. He definitely, obviously, proofread it before he posted it. He's getting better with every story that he's writing. So really good story, Slimebeast. Thank you for another great tale. Out of 10, what would I give this story? This one's got to be my highest yet. I'm giving this a 9 because it has the perfect balance of horror and build-up. And like I said, it foretold pretty much what was going to happen from the beginning of the story. So I really like that. And the callback at the end where Lemon Lime Skull or Chris Watts actually becomes Funnymouth in itself. That was brilliant writing. Like you should team up with M. Night Shyamalan or something. But regardless, 9 out of 10 for that story. So without further ado, we are going to move into our true crime story for this episode. And this is actually going to be a very interesting one and a unique one that we really haven't covered anywhere between my two podcasts. And it's also one that I doubt a lot of people know about. So this is the story of Massachusetts' youngest serial killer, Jesse Pomeroy. This was a suggestion sent in by a listener of this podcast, David B. So, this is the story of Jesse Pomeroy, the youngest serial killer in United States history. Jesse Pomeroy is the youngest person being convicted of first-degree murder in Massachusetts history at the young age of 14. But just who was this twisted man? And how did he become a murderer from a distant time? Jesse was born in 1859 in Boston, Massachusetts. He was the second son of an alcoholic dockyard worker named Thomas Pomeroy and the son of mother Ruth Pomeroy. Jesse was intelligent, but he never really fit in with his classmates due to his size. He also experienced periodic epileptic seizures and was also born with what's described as a whitish membrane over the right eye. He was never into sports or competition. Instead, he spent a lot of time reading gruesome and violent stories about the Indian Wars. Oftentimes, when Jesse had friends over to play, they would play scouts and Indians. He would reenact torture techniques that he had read about in his stories. Jesse himself had a rough life from a young age. His father abused him, stripping him naked, taking him to the outhouse, where Jesse would be whipped with a belt until blood was drawn. This instilled a twisted mindset into the mind of Jesse, because before his 10th birthday, Pomeroy took his mother's songbirds and killed them by tearing their heads off. In addition to that, he was also caught trying to kill the neighbor's cat. Pomeroy's first victim was a kid named William Payne, whose body was discovered in an isolated outhouse. The outhouse was located on Powderhorn Hill and had occurred on Boxing Day, 1871. William was found hanging by his wrists to a rope connecting his wrists to the rafters above. He was partially undressed and suffering from hypothermia. Just as well, his injuries showed signs of trauma from a blunt force object. In the months following this discovery, 3 more boys came forward saying they too were lured to a place matching the description, all claiming that a boy older than them fondled himself while torturing them. The news of this crime outraged the citizens of Boston, eventually leading to the police posting a $500 reward for any information leading to the arrest of the suspect. It was wrongfully reported that the suspect was a young adult with a pointed beard and red hair. But on July 20th, 1872, a mere 2 days before Jesse tortured his last victim, Pomeroy got beaten by his father again. This time was the worst, causing Ruth to chase Thomas out of the house with a knife. It only took days for Ruth and her kids to pack up and move to South Boston. But with more and more trauma, Jesse's attacks became more frequent and more violent, starting with George Pratt. Pomeroy stabbed Pratt with a needle, scratched him with his nails, and bit chunks out of him from his cheeks and his ass. He then stabbed Harry Austin multiple times with a pocket knife, but the sickest part of this attack was that Jesse tried to cut off Austin's genitals. Later on, he slashed the face of Joe Kennedy and proceeded to force his head into salt water. From there, he slashed a guy named Robert Gould's scalp, but also tried to kill him by slicing his throat when he was spooked by passerbys. After the assault, Robert described his assaulter as having a milky eye. Cops were enlisted by Joe Kennedy to tour the schools of Boston in order to ID a suspect. Jesse avoided them initially, but for reasons unknown, he entered the police station as cops were returning. Kennedy recognized him and police arrested him on the street outside. After being threatened with a 100-year sentence, Jesse admitted his guilt and was subsequently sentenced to Westboro Boys Reform School until the age of 18. Although, with the help of his mother, he was released only a year and a half into his sentencing. He was a free man, but on March 18, 1874, Jesse was looking after Ruth's shop when a Katie Curran, who was 10 years old, walked in. Upon asking for notebooks, Katie was escorted downstairs by Jesse, where he proceeded to slash her throat and viciously stab her genitals repeatedly, later saying, quote, "It was just to see how she would react." After the brutal murder, he hid the body under ashes behind a water closet. He then continued to wash the evidence off his body and simply returned to work. Over the next few months, he tried to convince more young boys to follow him, to no avail. Whether it be them not being interested or others knowing him whisking their kids away, it's not really known. His reckless and unyielding urge to commit such heinous crimes caught up to him again when a body of a 4-year-old Horace Millen was found mutilated in a marsh near the city. Pomeroy was subsequently arrested. Although Jesse confessed soon after his capture, he quickly recanted it after lawyering up.
He only admitted guilt for Kieran's death after he threatened with Ruth and his brother being charged as accomplices. And though Jesse Pomeroy stood trial for Millen's death, he didn't for Kieran's. This was ammo for Jesse's lawyer to take aim for an insanity plea. This was laughed off by the jury, and in February of 1875, Jesse Pomeroy was found guilty and sentenced to death by hanging. But it never happened. Ruth did visit him throughout his years in prison, and he was never allowed to join the general prisoner population after some time. But eventually, he did. And eventually, he did die in prison of natural causes in 1932. He was 72 years old at the time. The only murder that was a crime of opportunity was Kieran. Typically, Jesse's targets ranged from 4 to 8 years old. He never had a set script he would say to lure kids away. He typically ad-libbed and used his wits to get them to accompany him. Afterwards, he would tie them, strip them of their clothes, beat them with a belt, and all the while masturbating. It was his fifth victim where he started mutilating and killing his victims. And it wasn't until after he was released from institutionalization that he changed his tactics to slashing the victims' throats and repeatedly stabbing the genitalia. Although the only victim he castrated was his last, Harris Millen. The following is a list of his known victims. Note, this will be graphic. Number 1. Tracy Hayden, who was 7 years old and tortured and whipped in 1872. May 20th, 1872. Robert Mayer, who was 8, was tortured by beating. On July 22nd of the same year, Johnny Balk, who was 7, was also beaten. George Pratt, who was 7, was tortured by whipping, needles being stabbed into him, scratching, and even biting bits off his cheek and buttocks. That's a way to say it. On September 5th, Harry Austin, who was 6, was mutilated. A mere 6 days later, Joseph Kennedy was slashed and tortured with salt water poured into his wound. September 17th of the same year, 5-year-old Robert Gould was tortured with the intention of being killed. In 1874, on March 18th, Katie Curran was murdered by way of slashed throat. She was then stabbed in her abdomen and genitalia after death. In April, he attempted but failed to kill 5-year-old Harry Field. And on April 22nd, Jesse killed Horace Millen, who was only 4 years old. His throat was cut to the point to near decapitation. He was stabbed 6 times in the chest and partially castrated after he died. Though it's not definitive, Pomeroy was thought to be the inspiration behind several Criminal Mind episodes. But all in all, Jesse Pomeroy was no doubt one of the sickest murderers this world has ever seen. And being so young and killing kids that aren't even old enough to, think for themselves. It's vicious. It's more than evil. It's even more proof that anyone in this world can be capable of evil. Alright, so that is the story of Jesse Pomeroy. Well, the case of Jesse Pomeroy. And, this guy makes me sick. This might be one of the worst murderers I've covered in this podcast, because this guy specifically targeted kids from 4 to 8 years old who couldn't defend themselves. How are they going to defend themselves? He's a coward. A total coward. 14 years old is a big difference from 4 years old. I can tell you that right now. So, as always, I'm not going to give the true crime aspect of this actual score out of 10. I will rate my own research, which is probably a 6 this time around. I probably should have proofread a little bit better. But as a whole, this killer, you guys know my immediate reaction every time. This guy is evil, but this guy takes the cake so far in every story I've done. You can't do that, dude. You can't kill kids. You don't kill kids. You don't kill anyone. You don't, but especially you do not kill 4-year-olds who literally are just starting to blossom in this world. That is monstrous, in my opinion. I don't give a flying hell if you're 14 years old or 56 years old. You know, you deserve to rot in prison for life for that. So, that's my opinion. Give your opinions down below. This was actually sent in again by David B., who turned me on to this gentleman. Well, not gentleman, you know what I mean. So thank you very much, David. We are going to be moving on into our third and final story for this podcast, which is going to be our cryptid deep dive. And I think this is going to be one that some of you may have forgotten, but it is pretty famous. So this is the cryptid deep dive of the Jersey Devil. The Jersey Devil is an American legend that has spanned over 250 years, with each apparent encounter differing. But most tell of a creature who emerges from the mist of a local marsh. But who or what is this cryptid, and why has it become a pinnacle and local legend of the surrounding communities? The Jersey Devil is an ingrained part of Southern Jersey history, but to truly understand the legend of the Jersey Devil, we need to go back to the beginning. His beginning. According to legend, he was born somewhere in southern New Jersey in an area spanning 1,700 square miles. It was an otherwise peaceful and calm area in the middle of what actually was a giant aquifer, with a vast area of old Native American trails. Some other roads were made for stagecoaches and made of either sand or stone. Many of these roads led to buildings built in colonial times, such as Suey Place, Hog Wallow, and Marianne Furnace. This stems from the first settlers to come to New Jersey, but the Jersey Devil legend goes much deeper. The site where the Jersey Devil was reportedly born is called the Pine Barrens, and this is where we get into the Jersey Devil's origins. A well-known case tells of a stormy night in 1735 in a place called Leeds Point. During the storm, a woman gave birth. As candles began to flicker and the wind howled throughout the house, some bystanders began to wonder if she had been a sorceress. Regardless of one of many children, this one was physically deformed, also leading people to believe it was due to her dirty deeds. Others believed it developed these disturbing features throughout its early life. The legend goes on to say he developed winged shoulders, a large horse head, a thick tail, and clove-like feet. And legend says it was confined until its escape. This is when the Jersey Devil was born. Another story is that of a young girl from Leeds Point. The British had come to the area in search of workers supplying the privateers. This led to a major clash at the Battle of Chestnut Neck. The townsfolk were outraged, blaming the girl. She later went on to give birth to what locals called the Leeds Devil. Another tale tells the story of a young woman who encountered a gypsy. Only looking for food, the gypsy was refused. In retaliation, the gypsy cursed the young girl. Later on, when she gave birth to the grotesque creature we know now as the Jersey Devil. Although, another well-known story occurs in October of 1830, when a resident of Vienna,
New Jersey, named John Villay, who was making scary masks with his children, encountered the creature. The devil is blamed for massive crop harvest failures, also causing cows to stop giving milk, and being blamed for causing most droughts. It was believed that he would reemerge every 7 years, foreshadowing even more hard times. What made the local population believe in the Jersey Devil so much was the amount of high society and public workers who claimed to have either seen or come in contact with it. These accounts are what truly made the legend skyrocket. In fact, one of the most famous stories is that of Napoleon Bonaparte's brother, Joseph Bonaparte. The story goes that one night in the woods of Bordentown, New Jersey, Joseph encountered the beast while out game hunting. In Clayton, New Jersey, it is reported that a group of people ended up chasing the Jersey Devil to the edge of the forest, but fearing they'd be easy prey within the trees, the posse waited, saying, quote, "If you're the devil, rattle your chains." But nothing happened. There are more outlandish stories, but I felt they were a bit too out there to be believable. But the legend continued to grow, with new sightings popping up starting in 1859 from Bridgeton to Haddonfield. The sightings picked up, and it was next reportedly seen at the border to New York in 1899. From there, in 1909, the devil was then spotted from Gloucester to Trenton. Up until then, the only way people heard of the Jersey Devil was by word of mouth. That all changed in January of 1909, when a newspaper published an article on the cryptid, causing panic among the general population. Following the 1909 panic, scientists and researchers were asked for answers as to what the creature may be. They were stumped, however, and hypothesized that the Jersey Devil was a prehistoric creature from Jurassic period, speculating it had hid away in a limestone cave and that it was actually some form of a pterodactyl. Scientists in New York, however, believed it to be, quote, marsupial carnivore, although the Natural Science Academy in Philadelphia could never find a similar looking creature to the Jersey Devil, adding more mystery to the case as a whole. While this info scared many, it also intrigued others even more, leading to the superintendent of the Philadelphia Zoo offering a $10,000 reward for the capture of the cryptid. This reward was never claimed and is still active today. Some researchers believed the Jersey Devil to be a Sandy Hill crane, which only loosely resembled the reported sightings, while others thought it was the literal blending of a human and devil. Sightings of the devil go back as far as 1700s. It seemed the further north you went, the more theories and stories you heard, and like I said, the more outlandish they became. As time went on, and the more New Jersey developed into what it is today, the sightings began to dwindle, but the fear is still there, and the legend of the infamous Jersey Devil will live on. And the only question on many researchers' minds, when will the Jersey Devil return? Alright, so that's our cryptid story. I know that wasn't exactly the longest deep dive, because that's pretty much all I could really find. And I actually used a lot of sources for that. So, what do I think of the Jersey Devil? Ooh, I love going into these deep dives because my personal belief is the New Jersey Devil, or the Jersey Devil, is a real thing. It definitely is. The sightings go back literal centuries, and I don't know. I don't know what the true origin story of it is. We actually kind of read through a lot of possible theories and legends and myths, but I don't know. It could be a prehistoric animal. Definitely not a pterodactyl. The scientists actually could not find a similar creature matching up to whatever this thing is. So
I don't know, maybe it is something of legend, maybe it is something out of a different dimension, but we're not going to go that far. I do think it's an organic being, kind of like the Bigfoot. You know, it's definitely intelligent. There really isn't any reports of it being malicious or attacking someone. So I don't I don't know. Maybe it just wants to live its life, mind its own business. Leave me alone, kind of thing. I think the only reason he got the name Jersey Devil was because he resembled what people would think the devil would look like. So I don't know. I think it exists. I do think there are a lot of creatures out there, even in on land, not just water, that we haven't discovered yet. And maybe this is just another species or evolution gone wrong, or could be deformed. But uh, as for my research, I feel like it was way too short, so I'll give myself a 5 out of 10 on that. But um, yeah, I believe the Jersey Devil exists. So let me know what you guys think down below. As always, you can always hit me up on Facebook, my email, which is talesforthedarkcis@gmail.com. And yeah, yeah, I guess from here, that's the end of our stories for this episode. So we're going to get into our closing statements and shoutouts. So we'll start with our new listeners for this episode. We had several more people join the Facebook group, starting with Baznas A, or Baznas A. I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names. I'm not quite sure how to pronounce your name, but thank you very much for joining either way, and please don't be offended by that. Next we have Alicia M, as well as Lucas M. So thank you both as well for joining. I don't believe we've had the pleasure of meeting, so I appreciate new listeners all the time. It's new friends, new people to get to know, and I think you get to know me throughout this podcast. Next we have Ben H and Amber G. So another couple of people I haven't had the pleasure of meeting. So same thing with you guys. And if you ever have a suggestion or a comment or anything like that, feel free to send me a message. And thank you guys both very much for liking the podcast. Next, we have Jennifer T, who has been very active on the page as of late, and I really appreciate her support. She's been awesome. So thank you very much, Jennifer T. I hope you know who you are, but for privacy's sake, I will not be releasing last names. Next comes to an old high school classmate. We have Tristan M. Had art class with him. I got to know some of the best people in that art class. Bundy Yos is top of the list. That was my teacher. She was spunky. I mean, she was awesome. But Tristan and the entire group there were awesome. I even might have gotten into a fight with a person in that group, but even afterwards, we were cool. I mean, we even fucking walked down the hallway together. And excuse my language, it's probably the first and only time I will swear on this. I am not editing this out because I have done like 5 takes on this already. But after Tristan, oh, and just for conclusion, Tristan, I love you, buddy. You're a good man and a good friend. So never change, because we need more people like you in the world. Again, sorry for swearing. Next we have Matt B. And so same thing. I mean, thank you so much for liking the podcast. I hope to get to know you better throughout our journey here, our seasons and everything. And which is, I'm actually going to be announcing something about the season lengths at the end of the episode. But thank you very much, Matt B. I appreciate your support, and keep on listening.
Next, we have Jordan K, which is actually a person I met in person not too long ago, and he is just the salt of the earth. Um, what can I say? From our pretty much 5 minutes of talking, I can tell you have a heart of gold, dude. Like, all of us have been through some shit, and again, I swore. But I mean, you're one of the good guys, and I really, really appreciate you. I can tell you've seen some stuff in your lifetime, and trust me, I have too. So thank you very much for supporting, and I, yeah, we'll talk. Next, we got Sharon W, and that's another new listener I haven't had the pleasure of meeting. So thank you very much for joining the podcast, and I hope to get some feedback from you as well. Comment, so, if you have any cases that you want to hear, want me to cover, just send me a personal message. So thank you very much, Sharon. And that leads into our last shout out for our new listeners. This would be April D, which is another very good friend of mine who came into my old place of work, which would be a Shell gas station. And she actually took my place when I left for a while. And yeah, if anyone understands how tough that job actually was, it doesn't seem like a hard job. And it really isn't for the most part, but it's more or less the Greyhound station that goes through it. She understood. So thank you very much, April, for being a good friend, and you did great at Shell. I just hope you know that. And that leads to my final two shoutouts. This is a couple of people that I've actually shouted out on this podcast before, but I owe a huge shout out to David B for suggesting the episode's true crime case, and Jesse Pomeroy. He actually sent me a list of interesting serial killers that I could use for episodes and upcoming episodes. So thank you very much, David, and continue to keep reaching out, man. We've actually become kind of friends throughout this whole process, so I really appreciate it. And I think if I'm not mistaken, you can correct me if I'm wrong. If I'm wrong after this, but I believe we met through my next shout out in their podcast. So this will be our final one for today, and it's a shout out to a pair of podcasters / ghost hunters that inspired me to start this podcast, and that would be Kurt and Krista from the podcast The Strange Sessions. So I really have to thank all you three, because you guys have been helping me out so much with this, and I can tell you it's hard work, but when I have listeners and friends, and David, you're included in that friends list, kind of helping me out by sending me ideas of what to do, it helps a lot. So thank you guys so much. Kurt and Krista have kind of been my mentors in this whole process, and David's been kind of helping me along with said process as well. So thank you all very much. Now, with our shout outs over and done with, we have just a few more items I want to go over before we call this an episode. Firstly, if you are not yet a member of the group page on Facebook, please go and like it and join the discussion. The page is called Tales for the Dark - Creepy Internet Stories. So please take the time and go and do that, because there's a lot of activity going on there. I give hints to our next episodes every time I have a new one in the process of being made. And I think, if more people get involved on the page, we will be rocking and rolling. So definitely look us up on Facebook at Tales for the Dark Creepy Internet Stories. I also do have an Instagram by the same name. If you want to send in suggestions or comments, you can always get a hold of me on either page, as well as my email, talesforthedarkcis@gmail.com. So, I also co-star on another podcast that I produce alongside my sister, Brittany. We just put out a new episode just yesterday, so you can check my Facebook page for a link to that as well. Or you can look us up on Facebook, Instagram, and Spotify under the podcast name, That Spooky Murder Show. So check that out if you're always looking for more content and you enjoy this podcast a little bit. It's a little bit different, but it's still content, and it's basically less of stories. It's a mix of stories and discussion. So we will read stories, but we also discuss at the same time our thoughts and beliefs on the subjects. So, but it is the same kind of content. Other than that, I do believe that is all for this episode. So, like I said, make sure to send me your thoughts on today's topics, as well as suggestions and general comments. So, from the Zahn Studio, my name is Devin Zahn, and I'll leave you with this. Monsters don't always come from a storybook. I'm out.